Today, we're going to talk about something that is actually going to look very different for each of us, and that is totally okay. That's kind of the beauty of being able to create these specific routines because we can customize them to our own lives. And what I'm talking about is our evening routines, but there are three key things that I want you to really focus on when you're building your evening routine, and that is what we're going to discuss today.
Are you ready to stop the chaos, the stress, the overwhelm that's filling your life? I'm Renee Matt, and together you and I are going to build simple routines that are going to change your life. When you put these habits into practice, you're going to be able to organize your life in a way where you can be there for your family, pay off your debt, save money, your house can stay organized, you don't have to stress about what's for dinner, and you still get time for yourself. So without further ado, let's get started. Welcome to the Routine Advantage Podcast.
So before we go too far into this episode, I just want to say really quickly that I have been talking about a Q&A episode coming up, and that is going to be the very next episode. So I just want to mention that if you have not sent in a question that you would like answered, you do still have some time to do that, but you might want to do it quickly because I will be recording the next episode within the next couple of days so that it is ready to go. So if you want to send in a question, you can do that by emailing it to us at theroutineadvantagepodcast@gmail.com. Or you can record a question in an audio message at speakpipe.com/ the Routine Advantage podcast. And both of those links are in our show notes. So if you are wanting a question answered, then that is a great place to do it. And I would do it soon. So as we're going into our episode, though, we are going to talk about creating an intentional evening routine and the three things that you will want to consider or review when you are building your evening routine. So, kind of going backward, when I was before I had created the evening routine that was my preference, that was more intentional, I was kind of all over the place. I was trying to catch up on all the things around the house. I was exhausted. I had been busy all day long. I was doing way too much for what I had time for. I was working outside of the home and I was doing side businesses and I wasn't really taking time for myself. I was working well into the evenings. I wasn't taking time for the gym. Like, there were so many things that I was not doing because I wasn't being intentional about my evenings. And once I sat down and really figured out what I really wanted my evenings to look like, I was able to start making some small shifts and changes that were in other areas of my life that allowed me to not only get more organized in the evenings, but also just in pretty much every area of my life. And I'm not going to say, like, if you adjust your evening routine, then everything else is going to fall into place magically. That's not how it works. But when we are very aware of what we're trying to create, then that gives us the stepping stones to be able to start to make those shifts and to be more intentional with our time. And while we're doing that, the more practice that we get and the more we repeat these steps, you will start to see changes, and then you will have the confidence and the ability to start prioritizing what you actually value most and start to let other things go away. And I think that's the biggest key here is you can technically take these key focus areas pretty much in any area of your life, in any of your routines, but they're really especially important, I think, for the evening routine because that is such a common time frame in a lot of our lives where we have the ability to spend more family time. And I know that's not the case for all of us, and a lot of people will work different schedules, and I'm not saying that it's a very privileged thing to be able, it's a blessing to be able to have evenings with your family, but if that's not the case for you, then find another time and you're going to have to kind of evaluate what your life looks like to see how you can do this. And maybe it's not an evening for you, but this is like that bulk of the time where you end up being with family, or you end up being able to have a chunk of time at home where you can get a lot of stuff done, and you can just adjust that. But for this episode, I'm actually kind of focusing on the evenings because typically the, standard 9 to 5 that everybody talks about, that is what I'm going to kind of focus on here. So take this with a grain of salt that yours might look a little bit different, but hopefully you can find some useful tidbits in here. But when I was looking at our evening routine, I really wanted to make some changes because I was just absolutely exhausted every evening. And I never really felt like there was this like rejuvenation and time for relaxation because I was always feeling like I needed to get more done and I was never caught up. And so I would take that time in the evening. I would be doing my side business stuff on social media. So I was on my phone. I never had screens that were gone. I would be in front of the TV watching a movie with my husband, and I would be on my phone, either responding to people or catching up on something, or I'd have my laptop on my lap while I was watching a movie and I would be, designing graphics or doing whatever on my laptop. It was never just focused time to be with him and watch a movie and just be fully in the moment. And that is what I started realizing that I really needed to shift. And so, because I would take all that time in the evenings, I would be completely exhausted, and then I would go into the weekends and try and catch up on housework and laundry and all the things, and there was just never that catch up time that was catch up for just relaxing. And so I was just always tired and stressed and overwhelmed and anxious, and it was just a mess. And so if you're feeling that, I know what it feels like to be in that. But when you start creating these specific routines or focusing on intentionality in these time frames in your life, you will start to see the adjustments that you can make. And it is going to take some time to let things go and to prioritize what is most important. So that brings us to going into the three things that you need to review when you are creating an intentional evening routine. And number one, it is your priorities. And while we're going into this, I just want to say you might want to grab a paper and a pen because this is going to be a really good exercise. I know if you're feeling busy and chaotic, that sitting down to write these things down is not the best, but it is really important to actually make some changes, and to see it out on paper is going to make a difference for you. So grab that paper and pen and sit down with a nice cup of coffee or whatever it is and start writing down your priorities. Like, you want to ask yourself, how are you wanting to spend this time? Not what you have to do, but what are you wanting to do with your evenings? So, are you wanting to use this time to get chores done around the house? Are you wanting to spend it at kids' sports games or activities? Are you wanting quiet family time at home? Are you wanting the ability to go on a nice quiet bike ride or go on after dinner walks? Like, what are you wanting to do with this time? Do you want family game nights? Do you want movie nights? Do you want work time? Like, what are you actually wanting to use your evenings for? And that is what I want you to do first, is just write priorities at the top of the page and then just brainstorm what is important to you, what you value most, and what this time looks like how you would like to spend it. And then the second thing that you're going to review is you're going to put a header that says responsibilities. So now you're going to ask yourself, what needs to be done in this time? So, what are you doing that needs to be done in the evenings right now? Is it your dinner and your cleanup time? Is it packing lunches for the next day? Is it those house chores that we just talked about? Is it finishing laundry that never got finished throughout the day? Is it doing work time? Like, some of these might double up with your priorities, and that's okay. So, just for this second one, you're going to write down all of your responsibilities. And then you're going to look at that and you're going to see a lot of things. And then you're going to realize why you feel so overwhelmed. Because now you're the third thing to consider when you're creating your evening routine is what routines can you condense? And this is where it takes that intentionality because you're going to be looking at what habits can you combine or tweak or stack together or let go of to give you back some time. And I want you to really, really think about this one because this is why it's important to have it all on paper. Because when you start to build an evening routine, yes, you want to have some structure so that you know that you have enough time to get these things done, but you also want to make sure that you give yourself enough flexibility because every evening will not look the same. That is not what I'm telling you you have to do is that you have to structure it so in a way that everything is going to be, looking the same from for every evening here on out. That is not the case. But what can you do differently to condense those routines that you are doing? So, if you have say responsibilities of packing lunches for the next day or you are trying to do dinner and clean up, like what can you combine? Is there a way that you can take an hour earlier in the week to prep a lot of veggies or snacks for the upcoming week to save time on not only making dinner but also packing those lunches? So maybe just 1 hour of prep time earlier in the week is going to help give you more time back throughout all of the evenings throughout the week. Or if it's house chores, are you able to complete your daily 7 home routine earlier in the day? If you work outside of the home, do you have any ability to do it prior to leaving in the morning? Or is it something that you can do as soon as you get home before you make dinner? Do you have time for that? I don't know what your schedule looks like, so you're going to have to ask yourself that. If you work from home, is it something you can do on your lunch break and do take 20 minutes to go through your house and do your daily 7 home routine so that you are reset and ready for the afternoon and going into the evening, and then that like pickup time is so much less? Or do you have a family that their chores can be done at a specific time to give you more time in the evenings? Another idea is, are you able to finish laundry earlier in the day? And if that's not an option to do it either in the morning or on a lunch break or something like that, is there anybody else in the house that can help with this and you actually do it together where maybe you put the load in the morning and then somebody else is at home that they can switch it out and throw it in the dryer, and then when you get home that night all you have to do is pull it out of the dryer and fold it and hang it, and you can put it away, on your next batch of putting clothes away. And so I'm just offering suggestions on little tweaks that you can make to be more intentional. So if this time is something that you typically spend scrolling on your phone, is there a way that you can put your phone away and get these responsibilities done first to allow you to have more time for your priorities? So if you can condense dinner and all these after dinner chores and everything into, like the 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. range, that allows you to have 6:30 p.m. to bedtime to spend with your family and to do fun things, and your kids can go outside and play, or you can have a movie night with your husband, or you can go out for a date. Whatever you are focusing on, just making these small little tweaks are going to allow you to have more time back. And so that is what I kind of want you to look at is where can you let go of habits or routines and start getting more time back in the evenings so that you have more time to rest and relax and be more refreshed in the next day. That is definitely the goal here is we want to be able to really give ourselves time to decompress that stress that's on our lives and feeling like we have to have everything done. And I know a lot of listeners also are working their own businesses, and I have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen, which I think is really awesome. And one of the things that you're probably doing is trying to catch up on work in the evenings. So, one of the things, like that was something I struggled with. One of the things that I did was a specific amount of time. So rather than trying to work in the little pockets as I'm going throughout the evening and then never really feeling like I had everything done and I would go to bed feeling like I was still doing things, I started to take actual chunks of time. And so I know I had the ability to do this. If this is um this might be something that you'd have to look at with your spouse or your kids, depending on their ages or how this works for your life. But if you're struggling with working all throughout the evening, try to dedicate just a pocket of time, like one pocket of time, rather than doing it all throughout the evening, scattered in between wherever you can grab your phone. Try doing it where you can say, okay, I need 20 minutes of dedicated time to go on the computer and get my work done. And I need to, respond to messages, catch up on things. Go and do that and take the 20 minutes and really focus on your priorities for work. And then when that 20 minutes is up, close it and put it away and respond to things the next morning when you are able to sit down and do your work. But because you will actually show up better for, if you have customers or whatever type of work you're doing, you will show up better to work when you feel refreshed. So get your priorities done. Make sure you're not using that, that 20 minutes of time really doing, random things that aren't going to move your business forward. You want to do things that are your priorities so that you can close it, you can put it away, and then you can have the evenings. And I know this is easier said than done. So it is something that as you're making all of these tweaks to your evening routine, when you sit down and write all these out, it gives you a bigger picture. And then you can start to just make one change at a time. And over time, you will get used to that change and then add another thing where you can condense something else or just make these changes small. But as you continue to make them, you will notice the benefits of being very intentional this way and seeing the time and the space that opens up because of it. And you will want to continue tweaking it. And one thing I will say too is if you have kids that are used to you working through these evenings and they are constantly busy and they are always feeling like there's no time to rest or relax, make sure you communicate with them that you are wanting to open up space and that is why you're adjusting this evening routine. Because if everything, is done by X time, then they can do the other things. And so if you actually, I have talked about this before, but it very, very recently, in fact, the last episode was an episode with my sister, and she was kind of talking about this now that I think about it. She was talking about this, how she has raised 8 kids and they have specific chores in the evenings and then it's after 7:30 is their time to do, their reward time or their screen time, things like that. But it's very well communicated where they know what to expect because if you have kids that are used to you working all through the evening and asking them to do things all through the evening, then changing this routine might get a little frustrating if they don't know what you're trying to change. So make sure you're communicating with them and letting them know that if you get it done by X amount time, then you'll have the rest of the evening opened up and you guys want to go do something fun or you want to go for a family bike ride or whatever it is you're trying to do and see how that comes across for them instead and make sure that as much as you want to keep doing the things and getting things done, if they have actually completed what they're supposed to complete, then go and spend time with them and enjoy it. And keep making these small tweaks so that you can start to begin to feel more organized, feel less stressed, and be able to enjoy more time with your family because that is ultimately the goal is that we are creating these routines that will allow us to live our lives and feel organized and stressed and not just always behind on everything because That is no fun. So, as we are going through the three things that you want to consider or review when you are creating an intentional evening routine, is number one, your priorities. Ask yourself how you are wanting to spend this time. Number two, you want to consider your responsibilities. What actually needs to be done during this time? And then number three, you want to consider which routines you can condense or which habits you can condense. So, what can you combine or tweak to give yourself back some time in the evenings and open up more space? So I hope those were helpful for you and you take this exercise and you really just dive deep into it and enjoy it and start crafting an evening routine that works really well for you and allows you to feel like things are getting done while also being able to relax and enjoy your evening so that you do feel ready and refreshed for the next day. And again, a really quick reminder, if you want to submit anything for the next Q&A episode, you can do that by sending us an email or recording a message in an audio message on SpeakPipe, and both of those links are in the show notes. I will see you on Monday for our Q&A episode.
Did you love that episode or learn something useful? If so, would you do me a huge favor? My goal is to grow this podcast and help as many women as I can break free from the overwhelm so they can truly enjoy their life. The best way for me to do this is for you to leave a 5-star written review on your podcast app and to share this episode with a friend or in your Instagram stories. I appreciate you being here. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you on the next episode. Take care.